I ended my engagement and disappeared. I'm not going to wait for her to decide if I'm her second choice. Hello, everyone. After what seems like an eternity, I have finally decided to talk about what has been happening in my life recently. I feel that it is time to tell my story. Let me give you some context. Until recently, I believed I was about to marry the love of my life, Valeria, 26 years old. We had been together for 4 years, and for a long time I thought our relationship was solid. But now that I look back, I wonder how I didn't see all of this coming. We met at a gathering at some friend's house in Austin, Texas. I was invited by a coworker, and she was a friend of his wife. From the very first moment, Valeria caught my attention. She had a strong personality, a sharp sense of humor, and a direct approach to saying things. I liked that no-nonsense attitude, which was different from other girls I had dated. We connected quickly, and after a year together, we decided to move in as a couple. Everything felt natural, as if we were perfectly in tune about what we wanted in life: stability, professional growth, marriage, and, eventually, starting a family. I worked as a project manager at a technology company, and she was a freelance graphic designer. Our schedules meshed well, allowing us to spend plenty of time together. Our life wasn't luxurious, but it was good. We enjoyed the simple things like binge-watching series at home or going out on weekends to try new restaurants. For a while, I thought this was everything I'd ever dreamed of. We discussed marriage on several occasions, but it wasn't until last year that I decided to formally propose. I didn't plan anything extravagant. I simply organized a dinner at home, just the two of us. When I asked her to marry me, she got so emotional that she cried and said yes immediately. That night, we began to imagine our future together: a fall wedding, a small guest list, and an intimate ceremony by the lake. Everything seemed to be falling into place, or at least, that's what I believed. At first, the signs were small, almost imperceptible, details that could have gone unnoticed if you weren't paying attention. But now that I think about it, they were there all along. Valeria's enthusiasm for the wedding began to fade after a few months. At first, she was excited, sending me Pinterest boards with ideas, looking for dresses, talking about floral arrangements and the music. Then, everything stopped. I would ask her things like, "Have you decided who your bridesmaids will be yet?" And she would simply answer, "Not yet. I'm still thinking about it." The same happened with the dress, the cake, the reception venue. All the details in which she had once shown interest suddenly stopped mattering. "We still have time," she would say. Every time I mentioned the wedding, it seemed to be an uncomfortable topic for her. At that moment, I convinced myself that she was stressed with work. We were planning a small wedding, but even that can be overwhelming, right? I thought eventually she would regain her enthusiasm. What I didn't understand at the time was that her apathy wasn't about the wedding itself, but about us. And the real slap in the face came one night when we went out with friends. That night, someone at the table suggested playing a trending TikTok question game. The premise was simple: answer personal questions without laughing or showing any signs of discomfort. Everything was going well until someone asked, "If you could revive a past relationship, which one would it be?" Without thinking, Valeria answered, "Oh, probably Mateo." Mateo, her ex from college, the same guy who cheated on her. The silence at the table was instantaneous. Valeria laughed awkwardly and tried to smooth things over by saying, "It's not that I want to get back with him. It's just that he was an important part of my past." At that moment, I decided not to confront her in front of everyone, but the discomfort lingered with me. That same night, when we were alone at home, I asked her, "Why did you say that?" She rolled her eyes and replied as if it were something trivial. "Oh, it was just a game." Don't take it so seriously. I changed the subject because I didn't want to start an argument over something that perhaps wasn't that big. But deep down, something had changed in me. And after that night, her behavior began to become harder to ignore. She spent more time on her phone, often with a silly little smile while reading messages. She started canceling plans with vague excuses. I have a lot of work pending. I'm going to visit my mom this weekend. They weren't inherently suspicious excuses on their own, but they began to add up. Until that Friday night that changed everything. That day, I arrived home early, excited to spend time with her. I wanted to order something to eat and enjoy a quiet evening. But when I walked in, I noticed something odd. Valeria was sitting on the couch with her laptop open, but she wasn't working. She was just staring at the screen with an expression of doubt. "Hey, I'm home," I said with a smile. She looked up and mumbled, "You came home early." Her tone wasn't one of happiness, but of discomfort. I tried to ignore it and went to the kitchen to prepare something to eat, but the silence in the house was overwhelming. Something was wrong. Finally, I asked her, "Is everything all right?" She closed the laptop and stared at me. "Actually, there's something I want to talk to you about." My stomach sank. I sat down in front of her and waited. "I've been thinking about us. And about Mateo." I almost laughed. "Mateo? Seriously? What does he have to do with us?" She lowered her gaze. "I think I need time to think. I want to take a break and see if there's still something with him." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You want a break to go out with your ex? Do you realize how absurd that sounds?" "That's not it," she hurriedly said. "I just want to be sure I'm making the right decision with you. And if it doesn't work out with him, I promise I'll come back." It was at that moment that I understood something. She thought she could put me on hold, as if I were merely a backup plan. And I wasn't going to allow it. I didn't explode. I didn't yell or throw anything around the room. I simply stared at her, feeling something inside me break for good. For a moment, I was speechless. My fiancée had just told me, with the utmost calm, that she wanted to take a break to see if she still felt something for her ex. And if it didn't work out with him, then maybe she would come back to me. How do you respond to something like that? I took a deep breath and, in a tone much calmer than I actually felt, I asked her, "What exactly does this break mean to you?" She settled into the armchair as if she had already rehearsed this conversation. "I just need some space to clear my feelings. Spend some time apart, see what I really feel. You could also reflect on us." I couldn't help but let out a sarcastic laugh. "So, you go out with your ex, and I stay here, waiting to see if you decide I'm good enough for you?" "That's not it," she insisted, now with a defensive tone. "It's not that I want to hurt you, Liam. But if we're going to get married, I need to be sure I'm making the right decision." There it was. The naked truth. After 4 years together, after living under the same roof, making plans for the future and getting engaged, she still wasn't sure about me. Instead, she was completely certain that she wanted to sleep with her ex. I felt a strange calm take over me. Something clicked in my mind, and for the first time in weeks, I had absolute clarity about what I had to do. I leaned back in the armchair, folded my arms, and stared at her intently. "All right, Valeria. If that's what you want, go ahead." She blinked, surprised by how easily I accepted her break. "Really?" I nodded, expressionless. "Yes. If you need space, you have it." She fell silent for a few seconds, as if she didn't know what to do with my response. I think she expected me to beg, to argue, to plead with her to stay. But I didn't. Finally, she murmured, "I'll stay at my mom's house for a while. This isn't final, Liam. I just need some time." Whatever you need, I replied with a smile. She looked at me for a moment as if waiting for some reaction. When she saw that I wasn't going to give one, she sighed and got up to pack a suitcase. I heard her opening drawers and gathering things in our room, but my mind was already elsewhere. When she finally left the house with her bag over her shoulder, she threw me one last look. "I'll call you soon. We'll talk when I have things clearer." I just nodded. "Sure. See you, Valeria." The door closed behind her, and as soon as I heard her car drive away, I grabbed my phone and dialed my best friend's number. "Noah, I need you to come over right now. We're going to make some changes." Noah arrived half an hour later with a box of beers and a big smile on his face. "Tell me you finally opened your eyes." I told him everything that had happened. He wasn't surprised. "I told you, brother. I saw it coming months ago. I knew that woman wasn't fully committed." We spent the night drawing up a plan, not one of revenge, but of strategy. The first thing I did on Monday morning was call a real estate agent. What Valeria seemed to forget was that the house was entirely in my name. She always talked about our home, about how she had chosen the curtains and the wall colors, but at the end of the day, it was my mortgage. I called the agent and scheduled an appointment to put the house on the market immediately. The market was booming, so we wouldn't have to wait long to find buyers. The next step was to clear the house of everything that reminded me of her. The decorative pillows she loved so much. Donated. The ceramic mugs with inspirational phrases. Off to the recycling bin. Her clothes and belongings, carefully packed in boxes and sent to her mother's house with a simple note. "Here are your things. Good luck with Mateo." I knew that move would catch her by surprise. She thought she could go out with her ex while I stayed home, waiting for her return like a loyal puppy. But no, I had other plans. It didn't take long before our story started to spread among our friends. I didn't speak badly of Valeria. I didn't play the victim or try to come off as the hero of the story. I simply told the truth. Valeria decided that she needed to go out with her ex before committing to me. I decided that I'm not anyone's backup plan. That was enough for people to draw their own conclusions. The friends who hadn't yet taken sides began distancing themselves from her. Apparently, the idea of someone breaking an engagement to explore other options wasn't so easy to justify. Valeria tried to take control of the narrative. She started posting motivational quotes on her social media about following your heart and discovering yourself. Until someone sent her a screenshot of my latest post, excited to announce that I've accepted a new position in San Diego. Sometimes, when one door closes, a much better one opens. Happy to start this new chapter of my life. The reactions were immediate. Messages from friends congratulating me, questions about my move, and, of course, a flood of calls and messages from Valeria. First, there were casual messages. "I hope you're doing well." Then, worried messages. "Why are you selling the house?" Until finally, desperation arrived. "What are you doing? Why are you acting as if this is final?" I replied with something brief and direct. "Because it is, Valeria." The next morning, she showed up at my office. She was pale, with red-rimmed eyes. "Liam, I made a mistake." I let her speak. She told me that she had realized that Mateo hadn't changed, that he had led her on with false promises and, in the end, treated her just as he had in college. That now she understood that I was the man she truly wanted to be with. "Will you give me another chance?" I looked at her calmly. "No, Valeria. The best thing that happened to me was that you showed me who you are before we got married." She tried to cry, plead, say that she could change. But I had already closed that chapter. The house was sold. My new life in San Diego was about to begin. And the best part of it all? I was free. After Valeria left my office, I stood in silence for a moment, processing everything. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel sadness. Just an enormous sense of relief. For so long, I had believed that she and I were a team, that we were building something together. But the truth was that I was the only one who had really bet on this relationship. She, on the other hand, had decided to play with my feelings, keeping me on hold while she explored whether her ex still made her feel something. Well then, I already had her answer. I, for my part, also had mine. That afternoon, I returned home feeling lighter than ever. I cracked open a beer, sat on the couch, and looked around. Soon, this house would no longer be mine. In a few weeks, I would move to San Diego to begin a new chapter, and honestly, I couldn't be more excited. Things with Valeria didn't end there. After I made it clear that there was no turning back, she tried to change the narrative. On social media, she began with posts about mistakes and second chances. Then came the indirect comments about how some people don't know how to forgive. Finally, the direct attack arrived. Sometimes, people abandon you at your most vulnerable moment, and that says more about them than about you. Of course, it didn't take long for mutual friends to start asking what was going on. Some tried to mediate, as if it were a childish fight. "Liam, maybe you should talk to her again. She's really devastated." "I don't know, brother. Everyone makes mistakes. Don't you think she deserves another chance? What if she really realizes now how she feels about you?" But I no longer had any doubts. Every time someone tried to make me question it, I responded with the truth. It's not about a mistake. It's about a decision. She decided to put me on hold to see if her ex was still a better option. Now, I decide not to be part of her game. That was enough for many to fall silent. Meanwhile, Valeria's life began to crumble. First, her attempts to win over our circle of friends failed. At first, some tried to justify her behavior, but when they found out what she had really done, asking for time to go out with her ex, they began to distance themselves. Next, her work started to suffer. As a freelance designer, she relied heavily on word of mouth and client recommendations. And, without saying a single word bad about her, I managed to shake her reputation. One of our industry acquaintances, Mariana, contacted me one afternoon. "Liam, I need to ask you something. What really happened between you and Valeria?" I gave her the short version. I didn't exaggerate or add dramatics, just the facts. In the end, Mariana sighed. "That explains a lot. She called me a few days ago asking for a recommendation for a big project, but something in her attitude made me doubt. Now I understand everything." It didn't take long before work referrals for Valeria started drying up. Not because I was speaking ill of her, but because people in her field didn't want to work with someone who treated relationships like temporary contracts. A few days before I moved, I received a message from an unknown number. "Please, Liam, just one last conversation." I knew it was her. I hesitated for a moment, but in the end I agreed to meet her at a cafe. When I arrived, I saw her waiting at a table in the corner. She looked different, more subdued. When I sat down, she looked at me with tear-filled eyes. "I can't believe you're really leaving." "Why are you surprised?" I asked calmly. "Because I thought that with time you'd realize that we could still fix things." I shook my head. "Valeria, this isn't an argument. It isn't something that can be fixed with a conversation or an apology. But I love you, Liam." Her words had no impact on me. A few months ago, if she had said that, I would have melted. Now they sounded empty. Maybe you think you do. But love isn't about putting someone on hold while you explore if you have better options. Tears began to roll down her cheeks. "I don't want to lose you." I leaned forward and looked her in the eyes. "Valeria, You already lost me the day you decided you needed Mateo to know if I was worth it." She sobbed, but I said nothing more. There was nothing else to say. I stood up, left some bills on the table to cover my coffee, and walked away. That was the last time I saw her. The move happened faster than I expected. In less than a month, I was already settled in my new apartment, with an ocean view and a sense of freedom I had never experienced before. I met new people at work, joined a hiking club, and adopted a dog from the shelter. His name is Zeus, and he has been the best companion in this new stage of my life. Meanwhile, from time to time I hear rumors about Valeria. Apparently, Mateo left her just a few weeks after she begged me to come back. Supposedly, he said something that made me laugh when I heard it. "If you were capable of doing that to Liam, what guarantees me that you won't do it to me?" Her work remains unstable, and she is no longer part of the same circle of friends we once had. But none of that really matters to me. All I know is that for the first time in a long time, I feel completely at peace. It took me 4 years and a betrayal to realize one fundamental thing. I will never be anyone's backup plan again. And that lesson is worth more than any failed relationship. If there's one thing I want someone to take away from this story, it's this. When someone shows you that they don't value you, believe it the first time. Don't keep waiting for them to change. Don't allow yourself to be treated as a second option. The best decision I made wasn't to take revenge or make Valeria's life miserable. The best decision was simply to leave and start over. Because sometimes the best way to respond to someone who treats you as an option is to make sure they can never choose you again.